Chapter 80. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 80. The first challenger from Tianfeng Valley was, as Gu Shaoyang had predicted, Di Wenxuan. With a name like that, he lived up to it, handsome and refined, like a young nobleman who'd seen some hard times. Looking around, only a few, like Gu Shaoyang, could match his looks and bearing. Di Wenxuan's appearance drew immediate excitement from the female disciples. He smiled and waved, which instantly sparked some grumbling from the men. Lin Kuang of Beishua Villa would like to see what you've got, Valley Chief, thought a young disciple with sharp features and a wild look jumped into the ring, challenging Di Wenxuan. Please, do come at me. Di Wenxuan replied with a graceful gesture. Lin Kuang didn't waste any time. He was strong, a late-stage Jiyuan cultivator, and his incredibly fast swordplay was enough to intimidate most of the onlookers. This guy's got a handle on the fast blade concept, even if it's only a little, Lei Lai said to Gu Shaoyang. Watch out. Beishua Villa is known for churning out guys like this who can grasp a bunch of different sword concepts. If you're not careful, you'll get burned. Gu Shaoyang nodded, but Lin Kuang couldn't get the upper hand against Di Wenxuan. His sword was fast, but Di Wenxuan was even faster. After 100 moves, Lin Kuang hadn't even touched Di Wenxuan's clothes. He had no choice but to admit defeat when Di Wenxuan held a sword to his neck. From the audience, Gu Shaoyang could tell that Di Wenxuan's footwork was interesting. He thought for a moment and told someone nearby, get Shui Haoyu up there to challenge him. Yes, senior brother Gu. The message was quickly relayed, and after a moment's hesitation, Shui Haoyu followed Gu Shaoyang's instructions and stepped into the ring. Shui Haoyu of Qingyun sect wishes to challenge senior brother Di Wenxuan. Shui Haoyu was strong, and he was good with footwork, too. Gu Shaoyang wanted him to test Di Wenxuan's skills, and indeed, the fight became a battle of footwork. Shadows darted across the stage, making it hard to tell where the fighters actually were. But after 100 moves, Shui Haoyu was also defeated. Gu Shaoyang's eyes narrowed. He realized that Di Wenxuan's movement technique incorporated a mastered artistic concept. After that, Hanyu Valley sent up a challenger, but he lost without much fanfare. Usually, the chief defender wouldn't be defeated, unless a sect had two exceptionally powerful monsters, one of whom was the chief, leaving the other in second place. That was the situation in Beishua Villa. They had the chief, Jing Tong, and then Jiang Lan, who had innate sword bones, but Jiang Lan hadn't stepped forward yet. Next up was Hanyu, the defender. Hanyu's arrival caused quite a stir. He can't even get past the 5th level of Beishua. Hanyu is probably the weakest chief ever. I could probably take him. Hanyu Valley must be scraping the bottom of the barrel. Anyone can be a chief these days. The harsh comments kept coming, and the Hanyu Valley disciples glared angrily. Hanyu remained silent, his aura terrifyingly gloomy, like a volcano ready to erupt. Tianfeng Valley's Huang Tao wishes to challenge. To the netherworld with you. Before the Tianfeng Valley disciple could finish his sentence, a cold, dark sword flashed toward him. He was sent flying, crashing to the ground and spitting blood. His face was bruised, and his whole body was shaking. The crowd erupted in shock, then anger. It's just a sparring match. Was that really necessary? That sword intent is terrifying. Hanyu's not weak. Then why can't he even pass the 5th level of Beishua? Later, a challenger from Beishua Villa received the same treatment, and the condemnation of Hanyu grew even louder. The competition between the 4 sects was about skill, not a life-or-death battle. And he was supposed to be a chief, yet he was bullying ordinary disciples like this. Gu Jun and Bei Hanshan stood up and rebuked Hanyu, so he didn't pursue his attacks further, but his demeanor grew even darker, like a dormant monster, making people wary of approaching him. Of course, no one dared to question his strength anymore. The next defender is the chief of Beishua Villa, Jiang Lan. Hearing this, everyone except the Beishua disciples stood up in surprise, watching as the cold-faced young man slowly walked into the ring. Gu Shaoyang was also surprised. He hadn't expected Jing Tong to lose to the innate sword bone. Let's see what this legendary innate sword bone can do. Chui Nan stood up nonchalantly, glanced at Gu Shaoyang, and went on stage. Jiang Lan had a naturally cold demeanor that kept people away. Even the Beishua Villa disciples were a little afraid of him. Cui Nan didn't bother with pleasantries and threw a punch. Diamond defense, thought he amplified the power of his punch by 10%, Cui Nan was smart and went all out from the start, but Jiang Lan only used one sword stroke, all anyone saw was a flash of stunning sword light cutting through the air. Cui Nan was sent flying, his chest caved in. Jiang Lan's sword wasn't even drawn, yet it possessed such terrifying power, even in its scabbard. Everyone gasped, looking at Jiang Lan's sword with solemnity and awe. Innate sword bones were truly terrifying. Brother Gu. Cui Nan coughed up blood and asked Gu Shaoyang with difficulty, "Did you see it clearly?" Gu Shaoyang nodded. "Yes, a 30% understanding of sword intent." Cui Nan asked again, "Are you sure you can beat him?" That question immediately drew everyone's attention to Gu Shaoyang. Gu Shaoyang remained calm and said slowly, "Within 3 moves, I'll defeat him." What a big mouth. Who does he think he is? Defeating Jiang Lan in 3 moves? Is he crazy? You think breaking through the 5 levels of Beishua makes you invincible? Please. The Beishua and Tianfeng disciples shook their heads in disdain and mockery. The Hanyu Valley disciples remained silent, while the Qingyun sect disciples breathed a sigh of relief, their faces breaking into sincere smiles. It seemed they'd already won this competition. Cui Nan laughed, coughing up blood. "My injury was worth it." Jiang Lan, still on stage, heard Gu Shaoyang's words and stared at him intensely. Gu Shaoyang met his gaze without flinching. Next, Jiang Lan seemed determined to prove something. Every challenger was defeated with a single blow, his sword never leaving its sheath. Finally, it was Gu Shaoyang's turn to step into the ring. "Brother Gu, you got this. Senior Brother Gu is the best." The Qingyun sect disciples were excited, while the Beishua and Tianfeng disciples booed. Gu Shaoyang's words had been arrogant, almost ridiculously so. Di Wenchuan, the Tianfeng chief, watched Gu Shaoyang with a knowing smile, as if enjoying a show. Suddenly, he turned and whispered something to the people beside him. A moment later, a Tianfeng Valley disciple with resentment in his eyes stepped forward. "Zhua Changfeng of Tianfeng Valley would like to ask Qingyun chief Senior Brother Gu for advice." Zhua Changfeng recognized Gu Shaoyang as the brat who'd ruined his plans back in the Qilian Mountains. If it hadn't been for Gu Shaoyang, he might be in love with Ji Xian and have gotten to do some good things with her. He hated Gu Shaoyang with a passion, but he wasn't strong enough to do anything about it, so he had to hide it. But now, Zhua Changfeng smiled sinisterly, secretly clutching the thing hidden in his sleeve. An extremely smelly monster ink. Once it touched something, you couldn't get rid of the smell or the stain for 7 days. He couldn't beat Gu Shaoyang, but he could humiliate him in front of the 4 sects and Ji Xian. He had to thank Senior Brother Di for this opportunity. The more Zhua Changfeng thought about it, the more excited he became. All he had to do was throw the ink as soon as he got on stage. Gu Shaoyang couldn't dodge it, no matter how strong he was, and it wasn't a hidden weapon, so it wouldn't kill anyone. He'd probably just get yelled at afterward. Zhua Changfeng was about to step into the ring when he heard a cold voice in his ear. "Tianfeng Valley is letting a loser like you challenge me? Are you looking down on me, or is Tianfeng Valley out of worthwhile contenders?" Zhua Changfeng looked up and saw Gu Shaoyang, holding his sword with 2 fingers, swinging it toward him. An unimaginably terrifying burst of sword energy shot out. Zhua Changfeng's eyes widened, and he instinctively raised his hand to block it. But he forgot what he was holding. Bang! Zhua Changfeng flew backward, the ink sac bursting in front of his chest, the extremely smelly juice covering his head and face. All Zhua Changfeng heard were gasps and exclamations, and all he could think was, "I'm done for." Then he lost consciousness. Chapter 81. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 81. A lot of folks were also itching to see what Gu Shaoyang, that Qingyun sect hotshot, could really do. Most people knew Zhua Changfeng. He was the son of an elder from Tianfeng Valley, super talented, and had even grasped 20% of the Qinfeng sword's essence, despite only being in the late Juyuan stage. But this top-tier disciple, with all his talent, couldn't even handle one blow from Gu Shaoyang. The people who were trash-talking Gu Shaoyang earlier suddenly went silent, eyes wide. Sucking in air. Impressive. even scarier than when Jiang Lan doesn't even have to draw his sword. Is this how all the top prodigies fight these days? Bei Hanshan looked grim. He had to admit that Gu Shaoyang's display was right up there with Jiang Lan's level, but while everyone was still reeling from Gu Shaoyang's power, someone caught a whiff of something nasty. Ugh! What's that stink? Bleck. Then everyone noticed Zhuo Changfeng passed out on the ground. The overpowering stench was coming from him, his once handsome face was now smeared with thick, black ink. The smell was so vile, it made people want to puke. Gross. What the heck is that? Looks like Zhuo Changfeng's, special sauce. Does he have some weird fetish? He was probably planning to pull a fast one on Chief Qingyun. What a scumbag. How could such a lowlife come from Tianfeng Valley? That the disciples nearby edged away from Zhuo Changfeng, whispering amongst themselves. The Tianfeng Valley disciples were mortified, wishing Gu Shaoyang had just killed Zhuo Changfeng outright. The head of Tianfeng Valley, Elder Feng Liang, looked furious. He glared at Zhuo Changfeng and snapped, "Get him out of here." Two Tianfeng disciples, looking disgusted, reluctantly hauled Zhuo Changfeng away. Gu Shaoyang was a little surprised himself. He had seen Zhuo Changfeng's sneaky maneuver and reacted forcefully, but he hadn't expected such a lowdown trick. If that stuff had hit him. Gu Shaoyang frowned. Zhuo Changfeng had only himself to blame. Beishu Villa. A young man with two swords strapped to his back strode forward, fixing Gu Shaoyang with a stare. Jing Tong. I want to test Chief Qingyun's skills. Jing Tong stepping up. This is going to be good. The atmosphere instantly crackled with excitement. Jing Tong was Beishu's top disciple, a first-rate sword genius. If Jiang Lan, the guy born with a sword in his hand, hadn't been around, Jing Tong would be defending the ring himself. Now, a showdown between two elite disciples. That was a spectacle. Jing Tong looked at Gu Shaoyang, unstrapping his swords. Cui Nan wanted to test your swordsmanship, so I'll test it for Jiang Lan. Consider it a friendly spar, junior brother. Gu Shaoyang met his gaze calmly. You can't handle my sword. Jing Tong's eyes narrowed. We'll see about that. A wave of intense sword energy erupted from Jing Tong. He gripped both swords, his sword intent shooting skyward, whipping the falling snowflakes into a frenzy. Whoa! Intense, the audience gasped. Jing Tong is practically at the Ningxuan stage. If he can't beat Jiang Lan, how strong is Jiang Lan? Let's see how the Qingyun sect's chief handles this. Gu Shaoyang ignored Jing Tong's display of power and slowly raised his sword finger. The onlookers' eyes popped. Holy crap, he's going to fight Jing Tong with just a finger. Against Jing Tong. That's insane arrogance. He's going to regret this. I bet he'll end up using his sword. Anger flared in Jing Tong's eyes. He felt insulted. Arrogant. Jing Tong roared, raising both swords in a crossed stance. Twin dragons ascending the sea. The swirling sword energy enveloped the flying snow, forming two snow dragons with terrifying sword power that lunged at Gu Shaoyang. Jing Tong had infused at least 20% of his sword intent into this attack, wielding two swords, making it 4 times more powerful than a typical late-stage Jiyuan attack. Everyone held their breath, waiting to see how Gu Shaoyang would defend against it. Gu Shaoyang remained calm and flicked his sword finger slightly. Instantly, an indescribable, terrifying killing intent filled the air. Heaven and earth fell silent, everything seemed to wither, as if even the falling snowflakes had frozen in place. A crimson flash pulsed, and Jing Tong's sword energy snow dragons abruptly stopped, exploding into snowflakes. Jing Tong froze, his swords hanging uselessly. Everyone could see his clothes tear apart at the shoulders, and behind him, a long groove had been carved into the steel-hard ground. Whoa! A collective gasp swept through the crowd. A few more centimeters, and Gu Shaoyang's sword finger would have taken Jing Tong's head, defeated Jing Tong with a single finger. The Qingyun sect's chief was frighteningly powerful. The watching elders looked grim. Bei Hanshan said, "That's killing sword intent." Exactly. Bei Feng nodded, his eyes wide with awe. That kid's comprehension is off the charts. He can even understand killing sword intent. Luckily, it's only 20%, otherwise Jiang Lan wouldn't stand a chance. None of his peers can match him. Only. Bei Feng wondered, someone who understands killing sword intent must be incredibly bloodthirsty and haunted by evil. How could he overcome the inner demon trial so quickly? It's strange. Gu Shaoyang's finger stunned everyone, even the leader of Beishua village, Bei Hanjue, who had been sitting at the top with an impassive expression, looked surprised and muttered, "Not bad." Gu Shaoyang, his expression blank as he recovered from unleashing the killing sword intent, said to the devastated Jing Tong, "I told you, you can't handle my sword." He then glanced coldly at Jiang Lan in the crowd. For the first time, the man who seemed as cold as a knife, utterly emotionless, had a burning fire in his eyes. His hand rested on his sword hilt, as if ready to draw it at any second. When Jing Tong stepped down, it was Hanyu Valley's turn to challenge. Everyone waited, but no one from Hanyu Valley spoke up. Finally, the leader Gu Jun announced with a wry smile, "Hanyu Valley forfeits their challenge." The crowd was stunned, looking down on Hanyu Valley. Little did they know, Gu Shaoyang had scared the Hanyu Valley disciples so badly they couldn't even think about stepping into the ring. With the defense round over, excitement soared. Next was the battle between the strongest of the four inner sections. Each of them would play 3 matches, and the one with the most wins would be declared the champion. Utterly fair, Gu Shaoyang and the other 3 chiefs went up to draw lots to determine the first-round matchups. Chief Hanyu. Gu Shaoyang looked at his slip of paper and glanced at Hanyu Valley. Hanyu was staring silently at his own slip of paper, his hand trembling slightly. He was terrified. Chapter 82. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Chiefs Showdown starts now. With that announcement from Beihan Mountain, the climax of the competition between the 4 sects was officially underway. The disciples were pumped. Whoever could beat the chiefs of the other 3 sects could pretty much be called the strongest of the next generation of the 4 sections. Ji Feng, Wei Zhuang, and Beilin Jiangbei Mushue were from the previous generation. Di Wenxuan of Tianfeng Valley stepped up to challenge Jiang Lan first. They both took the stage. Di Wenxuan was handsome and had a graceful demeanor. He was quite the looker. Jiang Lan had a cold aura, and his features weren't particularly striking, but compared to Di Wenxuan, he was harder to look away from. Junior brother Jiang Lan, our 2 sects have been buddies for ages, so go easy on me out there. Di Wenxuan said, half joking. Jiang Lan didn't crack a smile. My sword doesn't discriminate. Di Wenxuan's smile vanished, making him look a little awkward. Whatever. Di Wenxuan shook his head. Suddenly, his energy surged, and he seemed to become one with the wind and snow as his sword struck at Jiang Lan from all directions. That move again, the crowd sighed. Di Wenxuan's moves were so good, he was practically untraceable. It was like he wasn't just on stage, but everywhere all at once. Jiang Lan's face stayed the same. He slowly raised his sword. This was the first time anyone had seen Jiang Lan in action. Then, a terrifying sword energy 10 times stronger than Jing Tong's erupted from him. Thousands of miles, frozen. Jiang Lan said coolly. In an instant, all the wind and snow on the platform stopped. An indescribable icy feeling rose from everyone's chest, making them shiver. Di Wenxuan looked awful. The sword energy forced him out of the wind and snow. He yelled, "Spring breeze again!" A clear sword light appeared, its power on the rise. Everyone's eyes widened. 10% sword intent, 20% sword intent, a full 30%. Di Wenxuan was the real deal. The chief of Tianfeng Valley had actually grasped 30% Qingfeng sword intent. Even without that weird moving technique, he was top tier. But Jiang Lan looked cold and brought his sword down with everything he had. Boom! The sword energy went up again, 30% sword intent. A clash of 30% sword intents. It was incredible. Everyone held their breath, their eyes wide, not wanting to miss a thing. The clash of sword light and energy was like glass hitting a rock. The glass shattered fast. No way! Di Wenxuan exclaimed, stunned. They both had 30% martial arts intent. How was Jiang Lan so much better? It was like they weren't even playing the same game. could he have learned a fake sword intent? Jiang Lan said, I looked at the Beishua Mountains and understood the meaning of a frozen sword. It destroys everything. What can you do with that garbage Qingfeng sword intent? Why should you fight me? Jiang Lan's momentum increased again, freezing 35% of his sword intent. Di Wenxuan's face changed dramatically. He instantly retreated, but the sword light slashed him in the chest, and he flew backward like a rag doll. So much for being the big man, Jiang Lan said, sheathing his sword. The audience was shocked. Jiang Lan was too strong. Was this the tyranny of the innate sword bone? The frozen sword intent was truly terrifying. Gu Shaoyang had some insight. He understood the difference between the martial arts intents. The most common was Kuaiji sword intent, then there was Qingfeng sword intent like Di Wenxuan's, considered second tier. His own Chuyang sword intent and the shadow sword intent were actually at that level, but their intensity made them a lot stronger. Above that were martial arts intents with special effects, like the frozen sword intent and the netherworld sword intent. Finally, there was the killing sword intent he learned from Yan Qingyuan. 10% of that was equal to at least 40% of an ordinary sword intent or 30% of the Qingfeng sword intent. So far, Gu Shaoyang had never seen anyone go up against a martial arts intent like the killing sword intent. Beishua Villa, Jiang Lan wins, Bei Hanshan announced, his old face beaming. Then, it was Gu Shaoyang versus Hanyu, their second showdown. What's going on? Bei Hanshan, as the ref, frowned. The disciples grew restless, muttering in surprise. Why won't Hanyu draw his sword? His hands are shaking. Isn't he the chief of Hanyu Valley? You'd think he'd fight Gu Shaoyang. Weird. Hanyu clutched the hilt, veins popping, as if he were using all his strength, but he just wouldn't draw. The Hanyu Valley disciples watched their once proud senior brother and sighed. Han Shao looked at his brother below and realized he didn't hate Hanyu at all. He just felt bad for him. Why hasn't Hanyu drawn his sword yet? Bei Hanshan said. How can you be the chief of Hanyu Valley with that kind of weak martial arts will? Gu Jun sighed softly. Elder Bei, Hanyu was defeated by Gu. The eavesdropping disciples looked surprised. They didn't realize that Gu Shaoyang was so strong that he'd beaten Hanyu. Hanyu's netherworld sword intent was powerful. Bei Hanshan frowned. Even if you lose once, you shouldn't be afraid. Get in there and fight. Gu Jun was silent for a moment and said quietly, Gu defeated Hanyu with one strike. Boom, the crowd erupted, eyes wide. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. One sword. Hanyu couldn't even withstand one of Gu Shaoyang's sword strikes. How strong was the chief from Qingyun? It was hard to imagine. Even Jiang Lan was a little impressed. Hanyu's head was lowered, eyes bloodshot. He was breathing heavily, like a fish out of water, full of despair. He was soaked with sweat. Gu Shaoyang was his nightmare, especially after getting kicked from the Heart Demon Pass. The feeling intensified. He wanted to draw his sword, but the last fight replayed in his mind, and he was too scared. Gu Shaoyang looked at this genius whose martial arts heart he'd crushed. After thinking for a minute, he said, You don't have to feel bad. Hanyu's nervous face froze, and everyone looked at Gu Shaoyang. Gu Shaoyang said calmly, Because most people can't handle my sword, not just you. Cocky, they had to admit that Gu Shaoyang was right. Aside from the elders and the core disciples of Ningxin realm, maybe 5 people could handle Gu Shaoyang's sword. So. Hanyu said. Gu Shaoyang said, I'm telling you, it's not that you're too weak, but I'm much stronger than you. Gu Shaoyang turned to look at Jiang Lan and said, Even with his innate sword bone, I wouldn't need a second sword. Huh? Hanyu looked up, shocked. The crowd gasped. For the first time, Jiang Lan looked angry, and Bei Hanshan's face turned ugly. Gu Shaoyang was cocky. He was way too cocky. Chapter 83. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Heh. Jiang Lan was seething. But before he could even speak, someone snickered. Di Wenxuan, who just downed some healing potions, paled. Hearing Gu Shaoyang's cocky words, he couldn't help but retort sarcastically, Big talk, huh? He'd just been humiliated by Jiang Lan. Now, Gu Shaoyang was claiming he could defeat Jiang Lan with a single sword. What was that supposed to mean? Gu Shaoyang shot Di Wenxuan a cold look. What right do you, a loser, have to even speak? You. Di Wenxuan's face twisted in fury, turning even paler. Suddenly, Gu Shaoyang flicked a sword finger coldly in his direction, a blood-red flash of sword energy tore through the air, a terrifying killing intent flooding the arena. People scrambled back, terrified. Di Wenxuan's expression turned to panic. He unleashed his footwork, darting around like a whirlwind, impossible to pin down. Gu Shaoyang remained calm. A cheap trick that's been broken once, and you dare trot it out again? Humph. The blood-red light vanished as suddenly as it appeared. For a heartbeat, everyone was stunned. Then, the terrifying murderous aura erupted again, instantly crossing the distance to Di Wenxuan. Ugh! A muffled groan escaped Di Wenxuan. He staggered, clutching his chest. His robes were ripped open, revealing a foot-long gash. Another inch, and he'd have been sliced open. Impossible. Di Wenxuan stared at the wound in disbelief, then snapped his head up. How did you know where I was? Gu Shaoyang said dismissively, your footwork. It's just fancy wind techniques. Sure, it's fast, and you try to confuse people by constantly changing position. But you're not faster than my sword. Your little tricks are plain as day to me. Gu Shaoyang's ability to see through illusions, gained from absorbing concentration attributes, combined with his instant kill move, made dealing with a speedster like Di Wenxuan child's play. Beihanshan, watching intently, frowned. That kid's sword energy just covered dozens of yards in an instant. Can you figure out how he did that? I can't. But whether it's mental calculation or not, that technique, plus his bizarre and powerful sword intent, means no one at the same level can defend against his sneak attacks. This fight with Jiang Lan isn't going to be a walk in the park. Lei Lai, too, wore a strange expression, glancing at Elder Lin beside him. Both shared an unsettling feeling. Even we can't see the full extent of this guy's strength. The disciples below were dumbstruck. Gu Shaoyang was incredibly overbearing. He just casually pointed a sword at Di Wenxuan, a top contender, and crushed him without any pretense. It was less like a battle between sect leaders, and more like a senior schooling a junior. They simply weren't on the same level. When did the gap between leaders become this vast? It was terrifying. Bei Hanjue, head of Beishua Mountain Villa, Bei Linjiang, Jifeng, and others in the stand straightened up, their interest peaked. The fight was getting interesting. Gu Shaoyang ignored Di Wenxuan, turning to Jiang Lan. What are you waiting for? Jiang Lan's face hardened. He snorted, leaped into the air, and drew his blade. A terrifying wave of ice and anger crashed down like an avalanche. Gu Shaoyang, I'll defeat you with one strike. An unprecedented, overwhelming force exploded from Jiang Lan, even greater than when he'd crushed Di Wenxuan. The air turned frigid, almost solidifying. Snow fell heavier, accumulating on the stage and clinging motionless. The sword energy whipped it into a swirling vortex. The crowd retreated, faces pale with fear as ice crept across the ground beneath their feet. 40% sword intent. Jiang Lan has truly grasped 40% of the frozen blade's essence. Someone gasped, and shock rippled through the crowd. In the Jiyuan realm, understanding even a sliver of martial arts intent marked someone as a genius. 20% made them monsters. 30% made them top tier, someone worthy of leading a sect. Previous competitions had seen sect leaders display around 30%. Jiang Lan had just raised the bar by a whole 10%, and he was wielding the notoriously difficult frozen sword intent. Horrifying. An elder sighed. This is beyond anything a Jiyuan realm cultivator should be capable of. Even Ningxian realm warriors would struggle against this blade. This is truly an innate sword bone. Beihanshan was practically glowing with pride. Jiang Lan's display was a major victory for him. He turned to Lei Lai, a smug grin on his face. How about it, Lei? You swallowed my medicine before, now, you get to choke it back up. Lei Lai snorted. Why so eager? My disciple hasn't even made a move yet. You still think your student can handle that? No way. Behanchen scoffed. Lei Lai simply ignored him. Di Wenxuan and Han Yu were riveted on Gu Shaoyang. They wanted to see how he'd respond to Jiang Lan's strike, a blow that could crush even an early-stage Ningxuan realm cultivator. Gu Shaoyang lightly placed his hand on his sword hilt, his gaze indifferent, and unleashed a casual strike, *swish star. The flash of sword light blinded the eye. The momentum that Jiang Lan's frozen sword intent had built was shattered instantly. The avalanche of glacial power met a sword swimming upstream. For a moment, everyone saw a sea of clouds swirling around Gu Shaoyang, with a red sun about to burst forth from beneath, a third of it already visible, 40% sword intent. He, too, was wielding 40% sword intent. A collective gasp swept through the crowd. Damn, 40% sword intent was becoming commonplace these days. Jiang Lan pressed his attack. It's useless. Your sword intent is inferior to my frozen sword intent. The same 40% won't save you. Jiang Lan's voice boomed across the arena, radiating raw power. The glacial avalanche intensified, the falling snow amplifying the sword's force. The red sun, rising a moment before, now appeared to be sinking. Jiang Lan roared, Gu Shaoyang, concede. The spectators shook their heads, sighing. Jiang Lan was the better swordsman after all. Thought he'd be a powerhouse, but he's just all talk. Di Wenxuan sneered. Han Yu shot him a cold glare, then fixed his gaze on the stage. You think Gu Shaoyang's defeated? A hint of fear flickered in Han Yu's eyes, as if a thought had struck him. He hasn't even shown half his strength yet. Di Wenxuan stared, dumbfounded. At that moment, Gu Shaoyang looked directly at Jiang Lan and said, so what if it's the frozen sword intent? If my 40% Chuyang sword intent can't defeat you, then how about 50%? As he spoke, the red sun stopped its decline, radiating light with renewed vigor. The crowd gasped. But before they could even express their surprise, they heard Gu Shaoyang's voice again. If 50% doesn't work, then how about 60%? Instantly, the red sun leaped into the sky, ice and snow melted, and thousands of golden rays bathed the world. Chapter 84. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 84. The red sun was more than halfway out of the sea of clouds, radiating golden light and intense heat. Under its rays, the icy glacier of sword energy began to melt and break apart rapidly. Everyone was stunned. 60% sword intent. 60%. They could hardly believe what they were seeing. Jiang Lan looked equally shocked, a dazed expression on her face, her grip on her sword faltering. The elders watching were speechless. The proud smile froze on Bei Hanshan's face. Even Lei Lai and Elder Lin were taken aback. After a long pause, one of them finally said, that kid is a freak. Gu Shaoyang, having shattered Jiang Lan's ice with his 60% Chuyang sword intent, said casually, actually, I owe you a debt of gratitude for the magnificence of the northern mountains. This morning, I was fortunate enough to witness the sunrise, and thanks to that, my sword intent reached 60%. Everyone was speechless, struggling to find the right words, to grasp the meaning of the sword just by watching the sunrise. If it were that simple, wouldn't every disciple of Beishu Avila, living here year-round, have mastered the complete sword intent? This meant Gu Shaoyang's comprehension was extraordinary. He was simply a monster. The sword light, amplified by 60% sword intent, possessed the power and momentum of the rising sun itself, smashing Jiang Lan's glacier of sword energy to pieces. Jiang Lan, kneeling on the ground, her normally aloof face now vacant, murmured, lost. The entire area fell silent. Gu Shaoyang sheathed his sword, his expression as indifferent as ever. He looked down at everyone, seemingly radiating a blinding light. The Qingyun sect disciples were ecstatic, barely able to restrain themselves from shouting, did you see that? That's our Qingyun sect's head disciple, the invincible senior brother Gu. Di Wenxuan's face was a mask of ugliness as he stared at Gu Shaoyang, a hint of fear in his eyes. This guy was terrifying. Even Jiang Lan, with her innate sword bones, was no match for him. How could anyone among his peers possibly compete? Han Yu's previous gloom had lifted, replaced by a spark in his eyes. He seemed to have regained his confidence. Gu Shaoyang was right, he wasn't weak. Gu Shaoyang was just too strong. He was a monster. Why compare himself to a monster? Ji Xian covered her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief. That jerk is so strong. A touch of shyness and loss crossed her face, and her eyes flickered with unknown thoughts. Just then, a hesitant voice broke the silence. Senior Brother Gu. I don't think he even used his second sword, did he? That everyone was stunned, realizing the truth. Throughout the entire competition, this Qingyun head disciple, who had appeared out of nowhere and surpassed all his peers, hadn't even needed a second strike. No one could force him to draw his sword a second time. It was terrifying. The hearts of the disciples trembled. Gu Shaoyang was like a lone peak rising before them, so tall that merely looking up was exhausting. Good. Bei Hanjue, the master of Beishua Villa, smiled and nodded at Gu Shaoyang, admiration in his eyes. He then nodded to Bei Hanshan, whose expression was conflicted, and said, "Make the announcement." Bei Hanshan nodded and said with difficulty, "The winner of this competition among the 4 sects is Gu Shaoyang, the head disciple of Qingyun's sect." That the Qingyun disciples erupted in cheers, and Lei Lai laughed with unrestrained joy. He was so proud that even the usually calm elder Lin was beaming. Gu Shaoyang was the undeniable star of this competition, a talent unseen in a century. Even innate sword bones paled in comparison to him. Qingyun's sect had every reason to be proud. An elder sighed softly, muttering, "It seems Qingyun's sect is about to produce another Wei Zhuang. No, a monster who surpasses even Wei Zhuang." Others nodded in agreement. As some rejoiced and others despaired, a steady voice suddenly cut through the air. With the 4 sects competition concluded, it's our turn. Everyone turned to see a Qingyun sect disciple in white stepping forward. His gaze was fixed on Beishua Villa. It was Ji Feng. Many understood, and their expressions became excited. Ji Feng of the Qingyun sect failed to defeat Bei Linjiang for the 27th spot on the hero list 3 months ago. Now that they're facing off again, he must have reached the mid-stage of condensation. Bei Linjiang's cultivation has surely improved as well. This will be a fight worth watching. Who do you think will win? Hard to say. The elders of the various sects also showed interest. The 4 sects competition represented the rising stars of each sect. But the real battle between Ji Feng and Bei Linjiang represented the elite, the very face of each sect. Bei Linjiang, handsome and arrogant, had the air of a prodigy. Ji Feng, still not giving up. Ji Feng stepped forward calmly. On the path of martial arts, giving up is never an option. I will fight to the very end. The elders were struck by his words. While Ji Feng's talent might not match Bei Linjiang's, his future success might surpass him. The disciples were fired up. This was a true warrior. Good. Bei Linjiang laughed. If you want to fight, Ji Feng, I'll give you a fight. In the next instant, both men exploded into action, their sword energy and palm strikes colliding in a deafening roar. Gu Shaoyang watched from below. Both had indeed reached the mid-stage of condensation. Ji Feng favored fists and palms, his understanding of martial arts concepts reaching 40%. Bei Linjiang was similar in strength. However, Bei Linjiang's sword skills were fierce and sharp, clearly high-grade, which put Ji Feng at a disadvantage. If he fought one of them and used all his cards. Lost in thought, someone approached and whispered a few words respectfully in his ear. Gu Shaoyang stood up, confused, and turned to see a pretty Beishua Villa disciple standing there. Seeing Gu Shaoyang turn, the female disciple's eyes lit up and she called out in surprise, "Brother Shaoyang." It was Gu Lingfei, whom he hadn't seen in ages. A smile spread across Gu Shaoyang's face as Gu Lingfei ran up to him, grabbed his arm, and said affectionately, "It really is you. I saw you on stage and almost thought I was mistaken. Brother Shaoyang, you beat Jiang Lan. You're amazing." Gu Lingfei's eyes were filled with wonder, admiration, joy, and deep affection. The Qingyun disciples nearby were green with envy, thinking, of course senior brother Gu would attract the daughter of Beishua Villa, and fairy Ji Xian of Hanyu Valley is interested in him, too. Senior brother Gu is truly blessed. Chapter 86. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 86. Even with 20% of my killing sword intent plus instant kill, I could only force out 20% of Bei Linjiang's sword intent. His Ningxian realm energy is condensed into liquid, making it much purer and stronger than anything in the Juyuan realm. This is probably Gu Shaoyang's toughest fight yet. Gu Shaoyang took a deep breath, his eyes as calm as a deep, ancient pool. Then he moved, and suddenly there were two Gu Shaoyangs on stage. Shadow clone technique, that the Qingyun sect disciples recognized it immediately, especially remembering how Gu Shaoyang had created 5 phantoms during the inner sect examination. After the 2 phantoms, Gu Shaoyang multiplied again, becoming 4, and he wasn't stopping there. 6, 8, in a flash, 18 Gu Shaoyang surrounded Bei Linjiang, making it impossible to tell which one was real. Holy crap, this time, everyone was stunned, not just the Qingyun sect disciples. That's a Qingyun sect movement technique, not very high level. The 4 major sects have been rivals for years and know each other's basic skills. The Hanyu Valley elder recognized it and sighed, but for him to master it so completely, his comprehension is insane. An elder next to him shook his head. Even so, Gu Shaoyang's just trying to survive Bei Linjiang's sword energy. There's no way he can gather enough power to beat a Ningxian. As he spoke, all 18 of Gu Shaoyang's phantoms moved. One of them boldly drew a sword as they approached Bei Linjiang. What a show! Bei Linjiang roared, his energy surging like a river as he attacked the sword-wielding Gu Shaoyang. Gu Shaoyang didn't dodge, seemingly ignoring the attack. Watch out! Gu Lingfei and Ji Xian cried out almost at the same time, their faces worried, but the sword energy crushed Gu Shaoyang, and that Gu Shaoyang vanished like a bubble. A fake? Bei Linjiang's pupils shrank. Then, like the rising sun, the real Gu Shaoyang appeared behind him. 60% Chuyang sword intent, the golden light bloomed again, piercing the sky with its power. Bei Linjiang felt a huge threat. Desperate, he spun around and slashed his sword, but Gu Shaoyang's 60% Chuyang sword intent was too powerful to block easily. The aftershock forced Bei Linjiang back over 30 feet, leaving him looking disheveled. Whoa! The audience gasped. Everyone stared at Gu Shaoyang, who stood looking down at Bei Linjiang with a cold sword in his hand, struggling to find words to express their shock. Senior brother Bei Linjiang was losing. Some people's eyes lit up. Wow! The Tianfeng Valley elder let out a long breath, his face awestruck. His comprehension and combat sense are the best I've ever seen. The others nodded in agreement. He had forced Bei Linjiang, a mid-stage Ningxian, to this point using his Juyuan body. Even if Gu Shaoyang lost this battle, he'd still be a legend. Lei Lai burst out laughing, wishing he could shove his face in Bei Han Shan's and announce, "See that? That's my disciple." Elder Lin smiled slowly, stroking his white beard. "And mine," he added. Jiang Lan was also shocked, clutching her knife handle tightly. After a moment, she whispered, "I didn't lose unfairly." Ji Feng shook his head. "I'm not as good as him." Bei Linjiang looked furious, his handsome face twisting with anger. "You've pissed me off," he growled. "I'm not holding back anymore." Gu Shaoyang gently stroked the hilt of Hanfeng's sword and said calmly, "Good. Because I'm not holding back either." You. Enraged, Bei Linjiang's energy surged and he unleashed a full power strike. The whole world is filled with wind and snow. With 40% sword intent and the power of the Ningxian realm, he almost stirred up a blizzard across the sky. Many disciples were forced back by the terrifying force. Ji Feng had been defeated by this sword before. Gu Shaoyang, seemingly oblivious, kept his eyes fixed on the tip of his sword and murmured. "Chuyang." The sky churned, and the red sun slowly rose. Bei Linjiang sneered. "So what if you have 60% sword intent? My 40% sword intent in the Ningxian realm is more than enough to crush yours. Talent can't overcome everything." Gu Shaoyang glanced at him calmly. "It's just because your talent isn't good enough." A cold, deep aura suddenly radiated from Gu Shaoyang. Everyone's eyes widened, as if they were witnessing the most incredible thing in the world. "That's Gu Shaoyang's third sword intent." Someone shouted, almost tearing their throat, Gu Shaoyang had already displayed a strange, powerful bloody sword intent and the amazing 60% Chuyang sword intent. And now, a third one was emerging. This was insane. Gu Shaoyang was only in the Jiyuan realm, yet he had mastered 3 kinds of sword intent, and this third one was clearly at a high level. Was he even human? Not even monster could describe his talent. Everyone was stunned, frozen in place, as if they'd forgotten to breathe. Bei Linjiang's pupils dilated, his mind reeling. He was genuinely scared. A bright moon appeared where Gu Shaoyang's sword tip was pointing. A cold voice echoed in everyone's ears. The sun and the moon, descend. The scorching sun rose, the bright moon hung high, the hot and cold energies intertwined, yin and yang merged, day and night alternated, an inexplicable, terrifying power emanated from Gu Shaoyang's sword. The sword carried the sun and the moon. The blinding sword light filled everyone's vision, eclipsing everything else in the world. Snowflakes scattered, and Bei Linjiang's 40% sword intent shattered. Bei Linjiang's eyes widened as the diminished but still potent sword light slammed into his chest, sending him flying. Bang, star, the sound of Bei Linjiang landing was deafening. Silence fell. Everyone saw Gu Shaoyang standing with his sword, his expression indifferent and noble as always. A single thought raced through their minds: Bei Linjiang was defeated. Bei Linjiang, the 27th ranked on the heroes list, had been defeated by a peerless 18-year-old genius in the late Jiyuan period who had mastered 3 types of sword intent. Chapter 87. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The martial arts arena was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Everyone was still reeling from the shock of Gu Shaoyang's victory over Bei Linjiang when a voice cut through the silence. Well done. Bei Hanjue, the head of Beishue Manor, stood up, a broad smile on his face. You'd think his son hadn't just been defeated. He looked at Gu Shaoyang with undisguised admiration. Qingyun sect, he said slowly, a genius has appeared out of nowhere. The crowd stirred. Geniuses are the elite among regular people. Monsters are the elite among geniuses. But those beyond even monsters, they're simply called freaks. Bei Hanjue's praise of Gu Shaoyang was higher than anything anyone had ever witnessed. Some of the older elders sighed. One said, he truly is a freak. I've lived for 2 centuries, and this is the first time I've seen someone who deserves a spot on the Jiyuan realm's hero list. Others chimed in, unprecedented. Then it clicked for everyone: Bei Linjiang had been ranked 27th on the hero list. Now that he'd lost, that spot would naturally go to Gu Shaoyang, 27th on the Jiyuan realm's hero list, and he's only 18. He's already mastered 3 types of sword intent, and his comprehension is off the charts. Everyone gasped. Their eyes practically bugged out with shock. This was insane. Only the truly gifted could appreciate it. Looking at the calm Gu Shaoyang on the stage, everyone felt a thrill. Hanyu, the chief of Hanyu Valley, didn't dare draw his sword in front of him. He beat Di Wenxuan, Tianfeng's top disciple, with a single finger, crushing the innate sword bones, and then defeated Bei Linjiang, who was already in the middle stage of Ningxuan, with his Jiyuan body, earning him a spot on the hero list. He became the youngest person in the elite list's history. This 4-sec tournament was a wild ride. They had witnessed the rise of a 1-in-a-million prodigy. Gu Shaoyang's battles were legendary, the kind that would be recorded for future disciples to look up to. The Qingyun sect disciples were losing it. Gu Shaoyang, the prodigy. He was a Qingyun sect disciple, their senior brother. They couldn't have been prouder. Lei Lai and Elder Lin were grinning from ear to ear. Right now, Lei Lai just wanted to rub Bei Hanqian's face in it. Some innate swordsman. He wouldn't even qualify to be Gu Shaoyang's waterboy. When this news reached Qingyun sect, the sect leader would be ecstatic. Gu Lingfei's face was flushed, and she gazed at Gu Shaoyang, her fists clenched tight, her eyes full of adoration. Brother Shaoyang. She wasn't alone. Many female disciples from all 4 sects felt the same. Gu Shaoyang was handsome, charismatic, and ridiculously talented. He was the total package. If she could be his wife, just the thought made her blush and her heart race. Only Ji Xian looked a little sad. Gu Shaoyang's shadow loomed larger and larger in her heart, but she was drifting further and further away from him. she was considered a top talent in Hanyu Valley, but if things continued this way, she'd be lucky to even catch a glimpse of Gu Shaoyang's back, let alone catch his eye. What was she supposed to do? Sigh, a girl's got a dream. The four-sect tournament finally ended, the stories of Gu Shaoyang's swordsmanship dominating the four sects, his defeat of Bei Linjiang, and his rise to the hero list spread like wildfire among the disciples. Half of the Yuan kingdom was buzzing, restaurants, tea shops, inns, everywhere people gathered, they were talking about Gu Shaoyang, the Qinyan sect's monster, like a supernova. Gu Shaoyang was blazing a trail across the great Yuan kingdom, in a quiet valley. Within Qinyan sect, Gu Shaoyang rested, the air was thick with the scent of vegetation, and a clear stream babbled through it. A pavilion stood nearby, and a small courtyard bustled with servants. Compared to the small buildings at the inner gate, this place was a straight-up villa. This was a privilege reserved for core disciples, and that's right, Gu Shaoyang had been named a core disciple by Qinyan sect leader Wei Huan, an exception to the rules. He'd broken another record in the process, fastest promotion from inner disciple to core disciple. Gu Shaoyang, dressed in the white robes reserved for core disciples, sat quietly under the pavilion by the stream. He was handsome and had an aloof aura, like an immortal. The servants in the distance eyed him with a hint of awe. Several items were laid out in front of Gu Shaoyang. King Xian's stone tablet. Ji Feng had sent it over immediately after the four-sect tournament, not as a loan, but as a gift. Only in junior brother Gu's hands can this stone tablet truly shine. Those were Ji Feng's exact words. Of course, the desire to build a relationship was factored in. Second and third were secret manuals, both sent by Lei Lai, *Electric Light and Thunder Sword ** and Shenyuan Sword Manual Star. The former was a high-grade earth-level sword technique, the latter a mid-grade earth-level technique. Both were extremely valuable. Lei Lai had never been stingy with Gu Shaoyang. He hadn't taught Gu Shaoyang Electric Light and Thunder Sword * before because he worried he wouldn't be able to grasp it, and it would backfire. But now that Gu Shaoyang's comprehension was monstrous, Lei Lai had no worries and passed down the art. He hoped Gu Shaoyang would master it quickly and use the Lightning Thunder Sword to compete in the hero list in the future. So everyone in the Great Yuan Kingdom would know Gu Shaoyang was his disciple. The Shenyuan Sword Manual * was won by Lei Lai from Bei Han's Han. It wasn't a sword technique, but a special method. It involved condensing Yuanli into Jian Yuan and firing it at the enemy, creating an effect similar to the Jian Gang in the condensation realm. Gu Shaoyang was about to break through to Ningzhen, which made this martial art less useful. The fourth item was an exquisite token carved from white jade, with a small *GU* on it. It was Gu Shaoyang's core disciple certificate, allowing him to enter the third floor of the Chuan Gong Pavilion to select a kung fu method each month, and finally, Gu Shaoyang picked it up. It was a gilded invitation from Zhao Yuan, the third prince of the Great Yuan Kingdom. The invitation stated that His Highness the Third Prince had heard of Gu Shaoyang's fame and personally invited him to attend a deer-cutting feast in the Yuan dynasty's capital. In the past, Gu Shaoyang would have ignored the invitation, even if it came from a prince. He'd killed plenty of royal brats in the Dacian kingdom, but according to the messenger, Zhao Yuan had invited not just Gu Shaoyang, but other geniuses from the hero list as well, like boxing demon Luo Tianyu, ranked 13th, devil Feng Lin, ranked 7th, Bei Muxue, Wei Zhuang. It promised to be quite the party. The gathering of geniuses from the hero list was bound to spark intense rivalries. Gu Shaoyang's eyes blazed with fighting spirit. He wanted to attend the deer-cutting feast and test his skill with Hanfeng sword. But first, he had to break through to the Ningzhen realm. Gu Shaoyang's current combat power was definitely on par with a Ningzhen cultivator, and he could even defeat Bei Linjiang, but Bei Linjiang was only ranked 27th on the hero list, far below Wei Zhuang, Bei Muxue, and the others. Without Ningzhen realm cultivation, Gu Shaoyang couldn't make a serious run on the hero list. Sword intent plus 47 star. Gu Shaoyang decided to start by absorbing the sword intent bubble that had just refreshed on King Xian's stone tablet. After repeated absorption, the remaining sword intent on King Xian's stone tablet had become much weaker. A few more times and it would be gone. Gu Shaoyang had benefited greatly too. His shadow sword intent was now 50% complete, nearly catching up to the Chuyang sword intent. The power of the move asterisk the sun and moon sync asterisk had become even more fearsome. Gu Shaoyang also had a hunch that if both sword intents were perfected, the move would transform, the sun and moon would shine together. It would be a sight to behold, and Gu Shaoyang couldn't wait. Gu Shaoyang raised his sleeves, and dozens of high-grade Yuan stones appeared before him. He slowly closed his eyes and channeled the vast sea mysterious technique. The huge, transparent cyclone in his dantian began to spin rapidly. Breakthrough to Ningxian, starting now. Chapter 88. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 88. Thanks to the vast sea mysterious technique, Gu Shaoyang's Yuanli cyclone was 3 or 4 times larger than average. This is a big reason he could challenge guys in the condensing realm while still in the Juyuan realm. Without a massive Yuanli supply, even the sharpest sword intent and most powerful moves are useless. His huge cyclone of vitality spun like a miniature galaxy. It got faster and faster until it reached a critical point, then the center collapsed inward. The whole thing was shrinking, like it was birthing something even greater. Extract, vitality. Gu Shaoyang instantly drained the dozens of high-grade Yuan stones in front of him. A massive surge of vitality poured into his dantian, speeding up the cyclone's implosion. Countless strands of Yuan power compressed tighter and tighter. Gu Shaoyang felt his dantian swelling, like it would burst. Finally. Boom. It was more like a drip of water falling on stone. A single, flawless drop of liquid appeared in the center of his dantian. It was pure Yuan power, condensed to its utmost. Just that one drop held 30% of the total Yuan power of someone in the late stage of ordinary Ju Yuan. Only this kind of pure Yuan force could transform a Juyuan realm warrior's sword energy into sword gang, giving their moves a whole new level of power. The Ningxian realm was broken. The first drop of Yuan liquid formed, followed by the second, and the third. If someone breaking through to the Ningxian realm from ordinary Yuan Ju could condense 10 drops of Yuan liquid, they were doing well. More than 10 meant a solid foundation and serious talent. Gu Shaoyang transformed the energy of his cyclone into a total of 49 drops of energy liquid. An average Ningxian realm master could refine 1 drop of Yuan liquid in 3 days of diligent practice with enough Yuan stone. This meant Gu Shaoyang, fresh to Ningxian, already had a cultivation base comparable to someone who'd been in the realm for over 4 months. He even skipped the consolidation period. But he wasn't done yet. Gu Shaoyang pulled out another huge pile of Yuan stones, continuing to extract, absorb, and convert them into Yuan liquid. He only stopped when he felt a wave of fullness in his dantian. At this point, he had 499 drops of Yuan liquid. One more, and he'd be in the middle stage of condensation, breaking through to Ningxian from Ju Yuan and skyrocketing to the peak of the early stage. If people saw that kind of jump, it would blow their minds. Gu Shaoyang looked satisfied. My Yuan Qi conversion rate is almost 80% now, and my natural talent is in the monster zone. It's a pity, I'm leveling up so fast, but I'm burning through these Yuan stones at an insane rate. All the way here, Gu Shaoyang had fought countless geniuses, soaking up their root bones and comprehension stats along the way. His root bone had reached monster level, and his comprehension was now genius level. Now, if you gave Gu Shaoyang any human-level martial arts manual, he could read it once and fully grasp it. He could master it in a day and push it to the next level in 3. As for comprehending sword intent, it was like breathing, but once his sword intent hit 50%, Gu Shaoyang felt like he was hitting a wall. He sighed, realizing his comprehension still had room to grow. If his understanding was so off the charts that he could instantly master any sword intent, that would be something, but no matter what, the higher you climb, the harder it gets. There was no rush. This breakthrough had burned through over 300 high-grade Yuan stones that Gu Shaoyang had saved. All he had left were 20 top-grade, and a few thousand middle and low-grade. Gu Shaoyang figured he'd put cultivation on hold for now. He planned to hit up the scripture deposit pavilion. If he was breaking through to Ningxian, he needed to upgrade his martial arts game too. He had plenty of advanced sword techniques, like electric light and thunder sword and Xian Yuan sword manual, but he needed to upgrade his main skills and footwork. When he got to the Sutra Collection Pavilion, the Qingyun disciples he passed gave him looks of pure admiration and respect. They bowed and called him, Senior Brother Gu. Gu Shaoyang nodded, his usual cool self. Dressed in white, he looked even more distinguished. At the entrance of the scripture pavilion, an inner disciple was sitting there, dozing off. Gu Shaoyang frowned. Hadn't it been an elder on duty before? Why was it some sleepy disciple now? Thinking about the old man's aura of death, Gu Shaoyang figured the old man might have finally kicked the bucket. Shaking his head, he strode into the scripture collection pavilion, heading from the first floor to the second, and straight to the third. There wasn't a single soul on the third floor, only core disciples and elders had access. Anyone strong enough to get this far already had enough skills. They were probably out training. The third floor was packed with books. Gu Shaoyang flipped through a few and realized they weren't all martial arts manuals. Most were just notes and insights from senior disciples and sect elders. That was good for Gu Shaoyang. He could just extract the martial arts insights and save himself a ton of effort. First, he needed to find a suitable main skill. He carefully browsed. Fanyang Kung Fu, a mid-level technique. Its energy is as hot as fire and burns the enemy. Little Yang Qi Ju, a middle-grade, earth-level technique. The Yuan Qi is strong and yang neutral, and has the special effect of exorcising evil spirits and illusions. A lot of them were Yang attribute skills. Gu Shaoyang was surprised. They were good, but he wasn't thrilled. Gu Shaoyang already had sword intent. He didn't need any special attack effects. He was looking for skills like the vast sea mysterious technique, that had no bells and whistles, just pure, powerful Yuanli. He did find a light body technique he liked, glimpse of light. It was great for long-distance running and pursuit. Combined with his shadow-following skill, one for direct movement, one for deception, it would cover his weakness in body skills. Maybe he should just pick the footwork for now. It was probably okay to hold off on replacing the vast sea mysterious technique for now, but he wouldn't have an edge in the Ningxian realm. Gu Shaoyang was torn. He could only choose one skill, and he couldn't find the right main technique. Then, an old voice cut through the silence. "Hey kid, still haven't chosen anything?" Gu Shaoyang spun around and saw an old, withered face. He stared, then blurted out, "Elder Chuan Gong. The one and only." The elder groaned. "I was trying to get some peace and quiet up here, but you've been pacing back and forth for ages, and you still can't pick a technique. I had to come out." Gu Shaoyang smiled, but a hint of doubt flickered in his eyes. There were people constantly coming and going at the entrance of the sutra pavilion. Why was this old man, who had been stationed there for months, suddenly seeking peace? Was he really on death's door? Gu Shaoyang peeked at him. Sure enough, the twilight energy around Elder Chuan Gong was even heavier, over 2,000 points. Remembering the old man's previous guidance, Gu Shaoyang couldn't resist and simply extracted it. Gu Shaoyang didn't see it, but as he extracted the twilight energy, the old man's body trembled slightly, and a spark of light briefly flashed in his cloudy eyes. Then, the old man said slowly, "Can't find a suitable main technique, huh?" Gu Shaoyang nodded. "Then come with me. There's one technique that no one ever picks." Chapter 89. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 89. Any secret skills hiding around here? Gu Shaoyang felt a spark of curiosity, so he followed Elder Chuan Gong over to a small shelf, where the elder pulled out a secret book. "Take a look at this." Elder Chuan Gong handed him the book with a knowing smile. Gu Shaoyang took it, a little surprised by the introduction. Galaxy Sword Code, top-tier Earth-level technique. So, a top-tier Earth-level technique, huh? Elder Chuan Gong leaned in, lowering his voice. This skill lets you integrate sword energy into your Yuanli, condensing it into a liquid form. Master it, and your sword energy will be as vast as the sea of stars, with thousands of blades in every move. It's terrifyingly powerful. Gu Shaoyang's heart skipped a beat, but he quickly frowned. If it's so great, why isn't everyone practicing it? The elder chuckled. There's always a price for power. The Galaxy Sword Code, as it condenses that sword energy, creates a super sharp essence. Sure, it's powerful, but it slowly eats away at your body. Minor cases. Hidden injuries all over the place. Worst case. Instant, sudden death. And, technically, it's actually a heaven-level skill, but all the techniques above the Xiandan realm are lost, so it's labeled as a top-tier earth-level technique. Kid. The elder locked eyes with Gu Shaoyang, speaking slowly and deliberately. If you pick this skill, you're signing up for a world of pain, constantly feeling like you're being sliced to ribbons, always one step away from death. Plus, with your talent, you definitely have the potential to break through to the revolving core realm. Get to the Divine Sea realm, and you'll have to find the follow-up techniques yourself. You might never find them, and you'll be stuck at the Divine Sea realm forever. Gu Shaoyang's eyes darted around, a flash of hesitation crossing his face. But he quickly made up his mind. I've decided. I'm going with the Galaxy Sword Code as my main practice. A strange light flickered in the elder's eyes. You sure about that, Gu Shaoyang? Gu Shaoyang nodded firmly. If I don't have the guts and confidence, how can I expect to master swordsmanship or any martial art? Heh. The elder gave a knowing smile. Gu Shaoyang was clear on things. The Galaxy Sword Code was perfect for his martial arts style and it was ridiculously powerful, which got him hyped. As for the downsides the elder mentioned, he could compensate for the hidden injuries by beefing up his physical attributes. And if he couldn't find the follow-up techniques? He could always switch methods, retrain, or even just push his understanding to the max and figure out the follow-up stuff himself. Not impossible, so yeah, the Galaxy Sword Code was perfect, but, Gu Shaoyang glanced at the two books in his hands, Glimpse of Light and Galaxy Sword Code, looking a little awkward. Core disciples only got one skill per month, but he wanted both. The elder seemed to read his mind, shaking his head. Kid, you're such a cocky, bossy hotshot out there. Doesn't the sect ever get a break? He waved his hand dismissively. Take both. Just don't come back next month. Gu Shaoyang grinned. Thanks, elder. I appreciate it. To show his gratitude, Gu Shaoyang conveniently bumped into the elder, sucking out dozens of newly generated, twilight energy, points. Once Gu Shaoyang was gone, the elder slowly put away the Brahma Sky Kung Fu, Little Yang Chi Ju, and the other techniques. That kid's got good instincts. He didn't bite on any of the young attribute skills I laid out. Had to go for that skill. I hope you don't end up like me. The elder sighed softly, but his eyes immediately brightened, but it's pretty much confirmed now. This kid's a rare talent, like Yan Xingtian. I've only been around him for a few minutes, and I feel full of energy. The way his energy flows is crazy mysterious. Gu Shaoyang spent 3 days converting all the Yuan liquid in his body into Sword Qi Yuan liquid, Jian Yuan for short. This sword element was different from the one in the Xian Yuan sword manual. The Galaxy Sword Codes was 10 times harder to condense, and 10 times more powerful. It was like condensing a ball of water into a sword versus condensing a ball of air. A massive difference in their essential nature. When the sword essence first formed, only 160 drops of the original 499 essence fluids remained in Gu Shaoyang's body. He steeled himself and pulled out 20 top-grade Yuan stones, topping off his Yuan liquid back to 499, but this time, Gu Shaoyang's strength tripled at least. Now, just a casual swipe of his sword aura was on par with a fully powered strike from a ninja master using their martial arts concept. It was insane. Ahem. Gu Shaoyang suddenly coughed hard. He opened his hands to find bright red blood on his palms. Didn't expect that, even with my physique, I'd get hurt just by starting to practice the Galaxy Sword Code. This technique is brutal. Gu Shaoyang shook his head, wincing. Guess I haven't worked on my physical strength in a while. I can use this as an excuse to fix that. Gu Shaoyang mulled it over, picking up the gilded invitation in front of him. Heard the Yuan royal family has a Chilan army, and all their knights ride around on level 4 or level 5 monsters. And the Yuan emperor's got this crazy zoo full of rare beasts, mostly monsters. Maybe I won't have to wander the Chilean mountains like a headless chicken this time. Qinyan sect, punishment hall. Lei Lai sat at the head of the hall, smiling at a handsome, middle-aged man sitting to his right. The man wore the robes of a Hanyu Valley elder. Behind him stood a nervous girl with a mole between her eyebrows. Brother G, it's been 30 years, right? Lei Lai said politely. What brings you and your niece here to reminisce about the good old days? Ji Hanqing looked a little awkward, clearing his throat. Brother Lei Lai, I'm actually here about my daughter, Ji Xian. Oh. What about her? Lei Lai asked, puzzled. Ji Hanqing hesitated, then said, I hear that your sex genius, Gu Shaoyang, is your disciple, Brother Lei. Lei Lai was taken aback, glancing from Ji Hanqing to Ji Xian, realization dawning on his face. I see. You're here about a potential marriage between Ji Xian and my star apprentice, aren't you? That's right. Ji Hanqing nodded sheepishly, while Ji Xian, standing behind him, turned crimson. Wait, what? Ji Xian suddenly reacted, interrupting. Elder Lei, what did you mean just now? Lei Lai gave Ji Xian an approving look. Sharp kid. Turning to Ji Hanqing, he said seriously, you're not the only one. Bei Hanmei from Beishua Villa and Master Xiaoyu from Tianfeng Valley brought their favorite disciples and daughters to Qinyan sect a few days ago, hoping to snag my disciple Shaoyang as a husband. What? Ji Xian exclaimed, eyes wide, her face a mask of disbelief.